And right now it's time for that time when we have our special guest. Tonight's special guest is Ian Wishart. Together with Macsyna King, Ian has a new book ready for publication concerning the death of the Kahui twins. But will you be able to purchase this book in the normal manner? Will it be banned from your local bookstore? It seems something is not quite right in the land of the free. We welcome Ian Wishart as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. Ian Wishart, welcome back to The Beat Goes On.
Thank you.
What a great kerfuffle about the Kahui case and the release of the book. So what happened? How did it all get so in such a turmoil?
Well, what happened was that we have to give the bookshops advance notice of the new titles that we're releasing, and it just so happened that last month we had to give them a month's notice of the Breaking Silence, the Kahui case, which is my collaboration with Macsyna King on her story and her version of events. And one of the bookshops chose to ask Television New Zealand if they wanted any copies. And of course TVNZ pricked up their ears and said, good grief, you mean there's a book coming on the Kahui case, got to have that. And they broke news of it on the day that the inquest resumed, and I had no idea the inquest was resuming.
Yes, it was total coincidence, wasn't it?
It was total coincidence. So the end result was within 48 hours you had a Facebook campaign, 46,000 people screaming in a lynch mob for Macsyna's blood and wanting to burn down bookstores and the like, and organising a boycott. And of course all the major chain stores have said no, we're not going to stock it now.
All of them have said no, they're not going to stock it?
All the major chains have either boycotted it outright or said we're withholding judgment. We haven't placed any orders yet. So we're in the unique position of having a major book that is extremely important to the New Zealand public. And you won't be able to get it at your local bookshop, which is unprecedented in this country. So the only place that the book is now available is on our website.
Now this all happened because some individual, and I'm not even sure who he is, you may know, decides to start a Facebook campaign, and as you say 46,000 people joined in. Would you say that that individual that did that campaign, that started that campaign, did he or she have their facts right? No,
they didn't. They had their
facts. And that's the terrible thing about it.
Sad thing about it. They whipped up 46,000 people into absolute hatred based on false information. They specifically said in their startup page, Macsyna King is getting the profits from this book. She's not. She specifically said, I don't want any money from this, from the death of my children. I just want you to tell my story.
Yes.
And I said on that basis, yeah, I'll tell it, and I'll look into it, and I'll.
So the major premise of their
campaign was utterly false.
Utterly false.
It was a lie.
Have they ever retracted or
no, they haven't. They've fudged the words on their site. They just, instead of Macsyna King profits financially, it's sort of insert appropriate words here in brackets. So they're playing with it, but effectively they've lied, and in doing so they've conned the New Zealand public.
So let's go over it again, because we've got to get this right. What did you say to Macsyna about the profits of this book? You said, I'll write this book.
Yeah, Macsyna came to me and she said, look, I've read your Arthur Allen Thomas book, and I'd like to tell my story. I've thought about doing a book for a long time, but I'm not a writer. And are you willing to look at the case? And she said, I don't want any money from this. I don't want to profit off the death of babies. I just want the story told. And I said, that's perfectly fine. If you'd wanted money, I wouldn't have done it. I'm not for hire in that sense. And I'll maintain editorial control, and I'll take a long, hard look at the case, which is exactly what I've done. It's a unique opportunity to hear from somebody at the centre of New Zealand's most infamous child abuse case. Like her or hate her, it's still important that we listen so that we understand what they've been through, what they can offer in terms of knowledge, what things they did wrong that we can learn from. And if we don't listen, we won't understand, and we won't be able to intervene in somebody else's life and say, hang on, you're showing all these signs, let's do something. This is a book that everybody needs to read, because this sort of stuff happens over the back fence.
So there's no fee was paid to Macsyna? Not a squeak. And yet, somehow the pre-publicity that went out to all these stores, somehow this person who started this Facebook campaign got the wrong idea. How could they have got the wrong idea?
They did it, in my view, they did it deliberately. The person who did it was
So it's not an honest mistake, it's
not an
a
honest
sabotage
mistake.
mistake.
It's a sabotage. It's a guy who is involved in promoting social media campaigns. He was instrumental in the KFC Double Down burger campaign, getting that whipped up on Facebook and getting all the publicity for that. And I think he saw this as a bit of an experiment, and he thought, how quickly can I whip people up into dealing with this? And the fact that he did it and that he lied has caused an enormous amount of damage and taken away people's right to receive the information. So I think the New Zealanders, at the end of the day, when they read the book, and
they're the losers, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I like to hope that enough people will buy the book from the website that the word then percolates out and people read it and say, hang on, this is nothing like the Facebook site said it was going to be.
Yeah.
My neighbour needs to read this. We need to get this into the bookstores and we need to actually educate ourselves as to what's going on here. And I firmly hope that's what's going to happen.
Now, the worrying thing about this is we all take pride in the fact that we look back in horror at Salem in Massachusetts when they burned the witches, and that could never happen in our society today. We're too sophisticated, we're too intelligent. A lynch mob could not operate in our society today, but we're actually seeing a potential. This Facebook is a potential to stir up a lynch mob.
Oh, and it did. In its first, 48, 72 hours, with the 46, peaked at 49,000, I think, and then dropped down to about 45, 46 now. But the hate that was out there, shoot the bitch, put a bullet between her eyes, I'll come along, I'll do something to her, I'm going to burn down every Whitcall store, these sort of messages and so forth. The ability for public hysteria to be whipped up in that fashion instantly by social media, it wouldn't have taken much if somebody said, right, we're going to hold a march down Queen Street tonight.
And we're going to lynch
and we're
this
going to do something. Well, if they'd said that, they probably wouldn't have gone down there, but somebody would have had the idea. And you can very quickly see how a crowd can just go out of control. If you just get enough angry people in one spot.
We take pride in the fact that we're not like they were in the 16th century. We take pride in that, and yet it's happening today.
Yeah, I remember covering...
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I remember in my TV news career watching as the LA riots happened in the early 90s, 1991. And the thin veneer of civilization, LA, one of the world's most modern cities, suddenly people being pulled out of their cars on streets and beaten to death with bricks and so on, and the city on fire. And a lot of people, watching this may not remember it, but
I do. I remember it. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, scratch away the thin veneer of civilization, and we are just as
savage
as we always were. And this Facebook campaign is proof of that. Sadly, if the Facebook campaign had been accurately based and honestly based, I'd agree with it. But it's not. It's dishonest. The book is actually going to be exposing the child abuse issue in this country. It's going to be offering you information on the Kahui case. It's got a unique perspective from a woman at the centre of it and what's happened to her in her life and what she did at this particular time. That is an absolutely gripping account.
Now, what are they going to miss in the book? Tell us about the writing of the book. How much work did you put into it?
Put 7 or 8 months worth of work into this one. Extensive interviews with Macsyna about her life, beginning basically from her birth moving forwards. Was she a victim herself, you feel, when you... She was, and that's, again, a familiar sort of strain with child abuse cases, so it's not necessarily a surprise. But Macsyna and Chris Kahui's lives make Once Were Warriors look like a child's picnic. They really do. And so perhaps people who we were also shocked in the mid-90s when Alan Duff's book came out, this puts that to shame. So there's an aspect of, this is happening. Then you see she gets as far as almost getting a university education. She went to university for a while. So she comes out of this abusive background, and she succeeds to the point where she's, educated, working, not a beneficiary, and then her life just falls apart because of choices that she makes. You can take the girl out of the West, but you can't take the Westie out of the girl, sort of thing. And it's, again, a human story in a sense, and it's where you see how our backgrounds, the choices we make, how they impact on our life, and how if we don't recognise the mistakes of the past, we are condemned to repeat them.
This is the big $64 million scrillion question. Can you say that to me on The Beat Goes On today, that you know who did kill the twin?
No, I can't say for sure, because you and I, no one else was there. And this is one of the problems, is that the only person who ultimately knows who did it is the person who did it. What I can say is that I believe the book points to who did it quite categorically. I believe the evidence is sufficient to convince me circumstantially of their guilt. And the reasons are laid bare, and as I said, because of the news reporting restrictions, you can only sort of tell so much in a 300 or 400 word news story. 100,000 word book gets it all in there, warts and all. So, you know, it's the closest thing you're going to get to be able to reading the court transcript and deciding for yourself. It is actually that intensive and that comprehensive.
But you're not actually saying it in words on the page.
I'm not saying it words on the page. I don't think, you know, I think the book is more powerful for it if I just, you know, let people draw their own conclusions based on the facts. I mean, people might disagree with me, people might have another theory. I've got to give people enough space to sort of come up with their own interpretation of it. I just think that the case as laid out is pretty convincing. I'm firmly of the view that anyone coming away from reading this book, you know, having the power to make their own mind up on it, will find it a very, very informative read.
Now, the book will be available in about 2 weeks' time, you're saying?
In about 2 weeks' time. Where it's going to be available from, I can't tell you. I don't know.
But you'll certainly be able to buy it from
it's certainly from our website, ianwishart.com. You can get it there. And if people put enough pressure on their local bookstores, they may well stock it. And it might be that as soon as enough people buy it and pre-order it through the website or whatever on day one and read it and tell their friends, then the pressure will go on the bookstores. You actually have to read this. It's not what the Facebook has said. This is a very important book. Let's get it in the stores. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Could we have some lucky viewers of The Beat Goes On win a couple?
Yeah, we can give them 3 invisible copies of the book that hasn't released. But yeah, if you want to give 3 away, absolutely happy. And just send us the names and we'll ship them.
Our viewers will be just delighted. So all I have to do is email Gerard at The Beat Goes On, and they need a little answer to put in the subject line to qualify. So what would be the question?
I think the question is very simple. They can name the title of the book.
Name the title of the book. Very simple. Of course it is Breaking Silence.
The Kahui case, yeah.
It's always wonderful to talk to you, Ian. You always get the side of the story that seems to make absolute common sense.
No,
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.